Now that we've seen all the operations of adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing, also exponents, we're ready to talk about what order those operations are done in. With order of operations, I like to think about this acronym GEMDAS. G-E-M-D-A-S. GEMDAS. And what GEMDAS stands for is, first we're going to take care of any grouping symbols. Now, grouping symbols can look like a lot of things. The most common are parentheses. You might have heard PEMDAS referring to the parentheses, but that also includes fraction parts. So like the top of a fraction is grouped together, the bottom of a fraction is grouped together, maybe radicals, things under the roots, anything that could possibly be grouped together. But usually grouping means parentheses or the fraction parts. After we've simplified any groupings, then we'll go back and simplify any exponents. After we've simplified any exponents, we'll simplify any multiplication or division. But I want to be careful. Multiplication and division is done left to right, which means sometimes we'll divide before we multiply, and other times we'll multiply before we divide. And finally, we'll finish off with addition and subtraction. And just like multiplication and division, we're going to do that from left to right. So let's take a look at some examples where we just work through this order of operations. Let's try and do the problem 6 times 2 minus 3 squared times 7 minus 9. Order of operations says we're going to start with the grouping symbols, the parentheses. So everything else stays the same. 6 times 2 minus 3 squared stays the same. And we'll do 7 minus 9 to get negative 2. After the grouping symbol has been completely simplified, then we'll do the e exponents. So everything else stays the same. 6 times 2 minus 3 squared, which is 9, times negative 2. Then we do multiplication and division from left to right. So starting on the left, 6 times 2 is first to give us 12, minus 9 times negative 2. Still finishing out the multiplication, this time the one on the right. Negative 9 times negative 2. When we're doing order of operations, we keep the sign with the numbers. So I'm going to treat that like a negative 9. Negative 9 times negative 2 is a positive 18. So we end up with 12 plus 18. And finally, the last thing we do is any adding or subtracting. 12 plus 18 is 30. We've got our simplified solution from the order of operations. Let's do one more example. Let's try 2 times 4 squared minus 4 times 3 all over 2 times negative 1 squared. Now remember, G, the groupings, involves the parts of the fractions, which means this numerator is a grouping and the denominator is a grouping. So we have to simplify the numerator and we have to simplify the denominator. When we go inside the grouping symbol, the order of operations starts over. So inside that numerator, there's no more grouping symbols other than the 3, but there's nothing to do with the 3. Next comes exponents. So the first thing I'm going to do in the numerator is the exponent. 2 times 4 squared is 16, minus 4 times 3. In the denominator, because it's a separate grouping, we can simplify that, also doing the exponent first. So we have 2 times negative 1 squared is positive 1. There's still work to be done in both of these groupings of the numerator and the denominator. We'll do multiplication next, which comes after the exponent. 2 times 16 is 32, minus 4 times 3. Over 2 times 1 is 2, and that denominator grouping is now complete. The grouping in the numerator is not complete yet. We still have to do more multiplication, working from left to right. So when we do that, we get 32 minus 4 times 3 is 12 over 2. Still more grouping to do in that numerator because it's not simplified yet. So 32 minus 12 is 20 over 2. Now that all the groupings have been simplified, we'll look for any exponents. There are none. But we do have multiplication and division, specifically division. 20 divided by 2 is 10. When we're solving problems with multiple operations, we'll use GEMDAS to help us figure out the order to simplify the expression.